So when I look at your experience, I picked up three areas which I thought, if you can really dig deep and understand and learn what you learned, that will be a good starting point. So I'm going to pick up three areas that I found very, very differentiated from many CMOs that I have seen. Okay. The first one is the work you did in Kantar, okay, where you built something called predictive content intelligence, okay, where what you really did there was, I think, you started looking at different content. You started looking at which content works for what, context, and there's a lot of work that you did around the predictive content, intelligence. So, can you talk a little bit about what was predictive content intelligence? Because today content marketing is at the core of what many marketers have to do, and that's something that probably you did. So is that something that you can
Yeah,
talk
so I
about?
think the idea was we were not so when we talk predictive, at least in today's language, really, I think the implication is that this is what's going to be big, right? In the future. But I think content and the way that people consume content has the channels have changed, so the media has changed over time, but tastes and preferences are remain relatively fixed. I think by the time if I take the music business, for example, we used to see that people would buy certain genre, would tend to prefer certain genres of music. If you listen to a lot of classical music, that makes up the bulk of your library. You might have some jazz, you might have some blues, but classical music is your mainstay. If you buy pop and rock music, those most of the artists that you follow really are around pop and rock. Though you might have a little bit of other influences as well. So when it comes to content, really, over time, the preferences generally tend to get fixed with a little bit of variation here and there. What we were trying to do with content was really try to figure out that you have this entire medium called digital. It's allowing you to identify consumers by different demographics, by location, by what websites they visit. Could we anticipate what type of content would actually be relevant to them? Because on the internet, you don't know who is on the other end, right? You don't have a person that you're speaking to.
Okay.
And really, what we were trying to do was trying to understand patterns, right? People who use certain apps, people who visit certain websites, who read certain types of articles, what sort of content do they gravitate towards, and how could that information be very useful to brands? Right? So, for example, let's say I work in the financial services industry. If I have a person who is, say, a type A person, right? That person needs to look at a lot of statistics, right? Likes to do a lot of in-depth research, likes to do a lot of comparisons, right? That kind of person will respond much better to information that is probably given to him in a tabulated format that shows very clear pros and cons. That has what we call in the industry a give-get. You give this much, this is what you get. This is how much you get in return, right? And that's one type of content for that kind of individual or consumer, right? But let's say I've got, now person is type B. This is a type B consumer. Type B consumer is someone who doesn't really want to get into too much detail. They prefer their content to be shared with them maybe through a short shareable video. They're not looking for depth of information. But they are attracted to a lot of visual storytelling, right? So for that kind of consumer, really, how do you identify that this is the kind of consumer that you're dealing with, and therefore figure out how to translate that same message, right, in such a way so that it actually brings out all of the relevant information that they want, right? So type B person may want a reel, they may respond to infographics, but the minute you give them an article, right, even if it's extremely well written, if it goes over 150 words, they're never going to touch it. Right? And as marketers today, really, we have all of these different types of content that we can use. that are at our disposal, but we really need to be able to understand what content to develop for whom and when to pitch it to them. Right? So if I have to take a different category, say a category like shampoo, everybody uses shampoo, right? For you take two young women, let's say they're both in between the age range of 20 to 30, right? So let's say early 20s, they're first jobbers, right? And now they're just kind of starting off their career, and they're looking for products that will help with hair care, right? And shampoo happens to be one of those things. Now, when you're in college and when you're moving into the workplace, you're all of a sudden there's a shift in your, in the way that the world perceives you and you perceive yourself, right? So all of a sudden, wardrobes change, personal habits, the ones that you want to project to the outside world, those change. And especially for women and their hair, right? Maybe I have short hair, so I'm just looking for something that has to kind of make the hair look very formal. But if I have long hair, how do I kind of manage that in the workplace? Do I tie it up? If I have curly hair, if I have straight hair, really, what kind of product is actually going to work best for me? Now, in that sense, one person might be saying, okay, fine, for me, I'm just looking for something that keeps my hair clean, presentable, and that's it. So I'm looking for something fairly functional. But for another person, they may be like, hey, listen, my hair is really curly, right? And it tends to not react well into an AC environment, right? So then in that case, I need a different kind of product. I need something that will work specifically for me. The content that she's looking for is very different. Right? So in that sense, the idea of predictive content was simply coming back to the original point of understanding who that consumer was, understanding what was relevant to them, figuring out which format they prefer to view that content. Is it a video? Is it an infographic? Is it a customer testimonial? Is it an influencer? And then helping brands kind of double down on those pieces of content so the content is able to work hard. I think what happens is today as marketers, we are very confused. We have this plethora of information. We have so much data saying this content works, this content works, this content doesn't work. Therefore, this is what we need to do. And actually, no, you need to figure out who your consumer is and choose the content that's right for them.